On a high desert ranch in Utah, witnesses have described lights that hover, dart, and vanish without a sound. Long after the reports began, the same question still hangs over the land. What was seen there? Skinwalker Ranch sits in the Uintah Basin, a place of dry wind, open range, and huge skies that make every strange light feel larger. It became famous not because of one sighting, but because the reports kept coming. For decades, ranch hands and nearby residents described odd animals, sudden flashes, and objects moving where no aircraft should be. Some stories sound uncertain, but together they created a pattern people could not easily ignore. The modern wave of attention grew in the late 20th century, when the ranch changed hands and new owners began hearing the older stories. They did not arrive looking for legends, yet the legends seemed to find them. What made the place compelling was not just the folklore, but the repeated claim that something physical was happening in the sky and on the ground. Lights were seen from different angles, by different people, across different years. Some accounts described bright orbs that seemed to pause, then accelerate in a way that defied ordinary aircraft movement. Others mentioned silent objects crossing the basin with a steadiness that made them harder to dismiss. The most striking claims were often simple. A light appeared, hovered, and then disappeared behind terrain or into darkness. That simplicity is part of why the case lingers, because no dramatic language is needed to make it strange. Investigators who visited the ranch reported that the landscape itself seemed to complicate observation. Long distances, low light, and shifting weather can turn a normal sky into a difficult place to judge speed or size. That does not erase the reports, but it does explain why the ranch became a testing ground for competing interpretations. Every light in the basin had to survive both close scrutiny and the memory of earlier sightings. Supporters of the extraordinary interpretation point to the consistency of the stories, strange lights, unusual animal behavior, and moments when instruments seemed to register something before the eye did. The sequence felt coordinated, not random. One recurring detail was the silence. People expected the roar of aircraft, the buzz of drones, or the crackle of distant thunder, yet many claimed the objects arrived with almost no sound at all. Another detail was the apparent change in motion. Witnesses described lights that did not travel like airplanes, but shifted direction abruptly, as if the rules of inertia did not quite apply. Then came the reports of ground-level effects, from disturbed animals to odd marks and unexplained disturbances around the property. Even when each clue was modest, together they suggested the sky and the land were connected. The strongest believer case is not that every report is identical, but that the ranch seems to attract a repeating class of events. Something appears, behaves strangely, and leaves people with more questions than certainty. That is why the ranch became famous far beyond Utah. It offered a place where anecdote, instrumentation, and public fascination all collided under one open sky. Skeptics question whether every light was misread aircraft, satellites, reflections, or atmospheric effects seen through a landscape that can distort distance. In a basin this wide, certainty can be harder than belief. That explanation accounts for some sightings, especially brief ones without corroborating data. Yet it does not comfortably settle the reports that involved multiple witnesses, careful observation, and unusual timing. The ranch's enduring power comes from that tension. Ordinary explanations fit pieces of the puzzle, but the full collection of stories still feels larger than a single convenient answer. What remains unresolved is not just what was seen, but why this place produced so many different kinds of reports. Was it a magnet for misidentification, or for something genuinely unusual moving through the basin? The most difficult stories are the ones that seem modest at first: a light that stops, a shape that changes, a sound that is missing. Those details are small, but they are exactly what make the case hard to file away. Even now, the ranch invites the same experiment in attention. Look long enough, and the sky becomes a stage where every explanation has to compete with what people say they actually saw. That is the heart of the Skinwalker Ranch story, a place where reports of lights and unexplained phenomena refuse to settle into a single category. The mystery survives because the questions are still alive. If the lights were only misread aircraft or weather, why did so many accounts return to the same strange behaviors? And if something else was there, why does it remain so elusive? The ranch does not offer a clean ending. It offers a record of people looking up, seeing something they could not easily explain, and carrying that uncertainty forward for years. For believers, that is enough to keep the extraordinary possibility open. For everyone else, it is a reminder that the sky can still surprise us in ways we have not fully learned to read. The case endures because it sits between observation and interpretation, where certainty is rare and wonder is not. Skinwalker Ranch remains one of those places where the night still feels unfinished. And as long as witnesses keep describing lights that move with purpose, the question will keep returning. What exactly was crossing that dark desert sky? The answer may be partly ordinary, partly mistaken, and partly still hidden in the distance. But the feeling left behind by the reports is unmistakable. Something there made people look twice. That is why the Skinwalker Ranch claims continue to travel so far beyond the basin. They speak to a larger human question about what happens when the sky refuses to behave as expected. In the end, the ranch stands as a place of testimony more than certainty. The lights were seen, the stories were told, and the mystery still waits in the dark. Whether those lights came from misidentification, unusual natural effects, or something stranger, the case remains open in the only way that matters here. It has never stopped asking questions, and that is why Skinwalker Ranch still matters. Not because it gives us an answer, but because it leaves us standing under a vast sky, listening for what might appear next.